Okay, this is going to be a series of videos, so the one you're watching is only one of a series, and I do encourage you to watch the rest of them. Also, I encourage you to watch the full-length webumentary titled Global Warming, Myth or Reality, A Skeptic's View. It goes through the entire science behind global warming, but with this series, we're going to pick and choose some interesting pieces, and we're going to ask the viewer, does global warming pass the stink test? We're going to take a look at the science, and I want you to ask yourself, does that even make sense? Most importantly, ask yourself, if a big oil company produced a report like that, wouldn't the environmentalists be going ape nuts? Because what we're going to do is we're going to take a hard look at the science, and then once again, just ask yourself, does this pass the stink test? Okay, for this episode of Global Warming, the Stink Test, what you'll see in Al Gore's movie is a scene where he gets up on a lift and he goes way up, probably about 12, 13 feet, and he points out that CO2 is at record highs, a full 25% higher than ever before in history. We're going to take a look at that, but most importantly, he has CO2 hitting a record high. We're going to take a look at his temperature graph to see how the correlation is. You would think that if they're going to have a theory that claims that as CO2 increases, so does temperature, or that global warming gases, namely CO2, causes temperature to increase, you would think they'd have a chart that shows that. That's basic common sense and science 101. So while Al Gore's up on top of his lift there, take a look at the chart that he uses for temperature. If you look real closely, you'll see that during the period where CO2 is hitting record highs, temperatures are actually falling. Now remember when we saw the hockey stick chart, it showed flat temperatures across the last 1,000 years. Al Gore's chart shows a dip in temperature from the medieval warming period to a bottom in the little ice age, and temperatures have slightly started to rebound. However, more importantly, take a look. CO2 is at record highs, and yet peak 5 is way below peak 4. And that's maybe 10, 20,000 years ago was peak 4. So clearly, CO2 does not drive temperatures to record highs. Otherwise, if a record level of CO2, you'd expect at least a close to record high in temperature, and yet Al Gore's chart itself shows otherwise. Most amazingly, however, is Al Gore doesn't even know what chart to use. This is from his own movie, and within his own movie, he uses 2 different temperature charts to make his case. Now, how could you ever reach a global warming consensus of scientists when they don't even understand what temperature chart to use? If you look on the left up there, you see Al Gore is standing in front of what is called the hockey stick chart, and you can show pretty much stable temperatures for 1,000 years, and then they shoot through the roof at the very end. Then the chart on the right shows the chart that he's showing when he's up on the lift, and as you see there, temperatures are falling. So how in the world can you combine the two? Both those charts are showing temperatures over the same time period, and yet one is totally dissimilar than the other. And so I ask you, just use some simple common sense. How could you reach a global warming consensus if you don't even know accurately what the temperatures are? You don't even know if you're near record highs. Al Gore himself doesn't know it, and in his own movie uses 2 different temperature charts to make his point, both of them contradicting each other. Okay, so let's get back to basics. The bottom line is, if in fact they claim that CO2 causes higher temperatures, you would expect to have a chart that shows increase in CO2, increase in temperatures, and they don't. Al Gore's own chart shows that during periods of record CO2, you have actually falling temperatures. Bottom line, common sense 101. If CO2 is 25% higher than at any time before in history, why isn't temperature anywhere near an all-time high? That's the problem they've got. That's the problem that somehow they've gotten an entire scientific community to reach a consensus on, that you're just simply going to ignore that common sense and go with the consensus. It doesn't make any sense.